The Los Angeles Angels put Major League Baseball on notice last night by trading for Lucas Giolito as well as Reynaldo Lopez, a couple of solid arms that are sure to help them in their push for the playoffs and their push to keep Shohei Ohtani. So we'll break that down and much more in this episode of Diamond Digest. So it is now pretty evidently clear that the Angels are going all in and they're pushing for the playoffs. But before I get into that, I just want to introduce myself. I'm your host, Peter Vrionis. This is Diamond Digest. I'm going to be breaking down the trade deadline, what's been going on around Major League Baseball, and much more. So stay tuned for the daily content that I got coming for you guys. But yes, the Angels are going all in, and they traded for a couple of rentals yesterday. They made this trade. They acquired Lucas Giolito and right-handed reliever Reynaldo Lopez from the Chicago White Sox for catcher Edgar Quero and left-hander Ky Bush, two of the three top prospects in the Angels system. And one of the other top prospects is Logan O'Hoppe, someone who is already on their Major League roster. Now, the Angels must have believed in Logan O'Hoppe to the fullest extent because he is their top prospect, he's a catcher, and Edgar Quero is their second best prospect, who's also a catcher, so they probably made the choice to keep Logan O'Hoppe around, and they were okay parting ways with Edgar Quero, who's someone that rose up through the rankings in the Angels system. And Ky Bush has struggled this year. He's got an ERA around 7 in the minor leagues, but he's got great stuff, and he's a lefty. So he's a project that I'm sure the White Sox are going to be willing to take on in that sense. But this is just a huge trade for the LA Angels. All the talk around baseball was whether Shohei Ohtani would get traded, what team he would go to in free agency. But right now, it seems as though the Angels want to hang on to him, and they're trying to make a push for the playoffs. And Jeff Passan tweeted this out yesterday. No, that's not the right one. This over here. If there was ever any question whether Shohei Ohtani is going to be an LA Angel for the remainder of the 2023 season, this unequivocally puts it to rest. The Angels are going for it, and in Quero and Bush, the White Sox got two excellent prospects for two rental players. Now, it's a lot to pay. It is a lot to pay if you're the LA Angels, but this is something that had to be done. You couldn't go the rest of the season with the same exact roster and hope that Shohei Ohtani just wills you to the playoffs. It wasn't going to work out that way. Now, if you do look at the baseball trade values indicator, Lucas Giolito 6.6 median trade value and Reynaldo Lopez 1.3. Those are much lower than their actual values just because of the fact that they are rentals and they don't have much term left on their deals. So that is taken into account by baseball trade values in exchange for Edgar Quero $20.3 million of value and Ky Bush $9.8 million. Now, it's hard to gauge. This is not always accurate, but this was gauged as a gross overpay by the LA Angels, and might be a tough pill to swallow for their fans if Shohei Ohtani gets up and he leaves. And you could say the same thing with Lucas Giolito. He's an impending free agent, and so is Reynaldo Lopez. So they can easily get up and walk to a different situation by season's end if they don't like what they see in LA or if they just simply choose to go somewhere else. So it's going to be interesting to monitor that situation. Big overpay by the Angels, but if this gets them into the playoffs, I don't think anyone is complaining. Now, this is another stat that really stood out to me. When you look at the AL West standings, obviously the Angels are a few games back. They only have a 3.1% chance to win the division and only a 14.1% chance to make the playoffs. If you want to get even crazier, they have a 0.7 chance of winning the World Series. Now, I'm sure this was before they traded for Lucas Giolito and Reynaldo Lopez, two arms that'll definitely fortify that pitching staff that has struggled quite a little bit this year. But still, even if those odds jump to 5, 20, and 1, it's still not great. It's still not great. They're a few games out of a playoff spot right now. Currently, the Jays occupy that wild card spot, that wild card 3. This is a gamble. This is an all-in gamble by the Angels, and they're hoping that it pays off. If Shohei Ohtani sees the commitment and sees the willingness to spend money and to try to make the playoffs, then I'm sure he'll definitely consider staying put in LA. But do you really want to sign that 12, 13-year deal that Mike Trout did, and then you're stuck in that situation with a team with no farm system? You're just wasting away your prime years on this team that is kind of destitute in a pretty tough division in Major League Baseball. So it's going to be It's going to be interesting to see how these last couple of months unfold, but the Angels are definitely the biggest story around Major League Baseball right now, as is Shohei Ohtani, and for good reason. He's leading the league in home runs. He's been an absolutely phenomenal player for the better part of 3 years now, and he's probably going to cakewalk to the MVP. So he's great. He's great. There's no denying that. But baseball, out of any sport in the Big Four, is probably the toughest one to win individually. I mean, you can't just will your team to victory. It doesn't matter how great you are. You have the two best players in the game on the same team, and they haven't been able to make the postseason in the entirety of Shohei Ohtani's career, and only once in Mike Trout's 10-plus year career. So the organization's not the greatest. They don't make the best decisions in free agency and in the trade market, but this is a good step in the right direction. Did they overpay? Probably. Are they going to make the playoffs? Probably not, but it shows their franchise cornerstone that they are willing to pull out all the stops to keep him in town. Now, obviously, the big question is, will Ohtani stay? Does he want to stay in LA? Does he want to go somewhere else? My first inclination is that he probably does want to go to another team, and he doesn't want to waste his time with the Angels because they haven't shown the ability to build a contending team, even with two of the best players in the game. So what do you do in that situation? Okay, they're making the trades. They're trying to keep you around, but is this really a winning situation? Is this really where you want to spend the rest of your career? Now, I don't think Ohtani is going to sign a bridge deal with anyone. He's going to try to cash in as soon as possible, and why wouldn't he? He's in line for a $500 to $600 million contract. The Angels could fork out that amount of money, but so can probably 8 other teams in the major leagues off the top of my head, and I'm sure he'll definitely consider those teams as well. There's going to be a list of suitors for Shohei Ohtani, and I'm sure he's going to definitely consider each and every one of them to the fullest extent. Off the top of my head, you could guarantee that the Mets are going to be in on him, the Padres, the Dodgers, maybe the Mariners, maybe the Astros. I don't think he'll sign with those teams, but they're definitely names to consider when looking at possible free agency. Obviously, you have the New York Yankees as well. They're going to be in the fold. The Boston Red Sox might be in the mix as well, just because they always are, and Masataka Yoshida could be an underrated part of that free agency campaign for the Red Sox, but the Angels are going to be in it until the end, and he's definitely going to give them a longer leash than other teams because he is more familiar with the way that they operate, and maybe he truly does want to be there. He loves where he's at. He loves the familiarity that he's built up with the Angels, and maybe he does see them taking strides in the future and spending more money and making more trades. That's definitely a possibility, but my first instinct is that he will leave town. And it's hard for me to picture a scenario in which he wants to stay in LA. I mean, maybe to the Dodgers, but not the LA Angels. They just haven't shown the ability to get over the hump. Maybe Ohtani's the one that takes him there. It's going to be very interesting to see how the rest of the season unfolds. I cannot wait. This is a very exciting time for Major League Baseball, and I'll have you covered every step of the way. I want to thank each and every one of you for taking the time to watch this inaugural episode of Diamond Digest, and I'll see you tomorrow.